everyone, I'm Jill and welcome to Mama J Crochet. In today's tutorial, I'd like to show you how I made this gorgeous crochet hook handle. I've always wanted to try to do this, just never kind of stepped into it, but I'm glad I did because I think it turned out really good. I used polymer clay and just kept playing around with the colors and the twist to get this gorgeous swirl pattern. So let's go ahead and get started. So for this project, I am using polymer clay and I've chosen a number 10 hook, a 10mm hook. I'm going to use some dark blue, going to use some gray, some lighter blue, and some white. I wanted to find something that was complementary to the hook color. So with this, I know there's no right or wrong reason, so I'm just going to kind of play around with these colors. I'm going to roll them out and twist them together to get some kind of a swirl pattern. So I'm not sure what I want it to look like in the end, but I do know that I want more of a variegated color. So I'm just going to twist these together and keep twisting and rolling until I find something that I really like. I want the dark blue to be the more predominant color, so I'm going to put that on the outside and try not to blend them too much together so they get muddy. So I'm just going to put this one on the outside. And I'm wearing gloves because this polymer clay does tend to stain things. This cutting board is an old kitchen cutting board, so it's not something I'm going to be reusing in the kitchen. So I'm just going to roll this out and keep rolling it together until I get the desired effect. Again, I want to be really careful not to do it too much, and I think I did, so I'm going to add some additional color. I don't think I've got enough to actually cover the hook, so I'm going to add a little bit more of each color that I started with, but I'm going to roll it out a little differently. I don't want to roll it into the tiny strips. I want to do flat and to kind of roll those together and see if I get a different outcome. Boy, this stuff is hard to work with. Sometimes you want to kind of smash it a little bit before you try to roll it. It can be a little bit easier to roll. These tools come in really handy when you're messing with this clay as well. Oh, tore that one. So just keep playing around with it. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. Just whatever you find that looks good. You may want a solid color. You may want to make little designs like flowers or ladybugs or something like that. Just play around with it and be artistic. And look at that, I've gotten muddy again. So I don't know if this is gonna work as I intended it, but I'm gonna keep trying, keep playing around with it. I might end up adding some more dark blue once I get all this rolled back together. So I just want to roll these two out now into a smaller strip and twist those two together and see if I can get some of that dark color to come out on top. So I've seen these kind of hooks online often, and I've just never broke down and bought one, and then I've seen a couple of videos on YouTube of how to make these yourself, so I figured what the heck, I'm gonna go ahead and try it. So now I'm just gonna smash these two together so I can get those rolled up and blended together, and then after that what I'm gonna do is just wrap it around the hook. I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more of this dark blue, as I mentioned, because I do want that to be my predominant color. And you saw when I first started rolling this out how much clay I had. So it does take a little bit of clay to be able to cover this. If you want a thicker hook or you're using a thicker hook and you want a bigger handle, you got to make sure to use enough clay to build that handle up to where it needs to be. So I'm just going to wrap this around very carefully. Again, I don't want to mix that too much in. I want that to stay on top to have that darker blue. And I'll probably add a little bit of glitter once I get it on, just to kind of see where we're at with it. I'm just going to roll this out flat. Now I'm going to cover that hook. See if the other side looks better. think I like the bottom, so I'm gonna go ahead and leave that. I'm just gonna twist it around the hook and cut the excess off and put it on the sides, because I want to use as much of this that I've created with this color. I don't want to waste any of it. Kind of stuck to my board here. These tools are a little bit awkward sometimes, but they do come in handy. So I'm just gonna fill these sides in here with those two pieces that I cut off. I'm gonna fast forward through a lot of the working parts of this because I don't want to bore you. Just roll this out until it's smooth, and we'll keep rolling until there's no more divots, and sometimes these gloves can make indentations, so you just have to be really careful. You can roll it between your palms. Just make sure you're pinching closed all of those seals because you don't want this to come open when you're baking it. I have used polymer clay in the past for other projects, but never something like this. So this is a first for me, and we're just gonna see how it turns out. So I'm just gonna trim this top down. I don't want to leave too much of a ledge right here because I'm afraid it will impede the yarn when you're using the hook. So I'm gonna try to flatten that out right at the neck of the hook. And I do want to expose more of the hook shaft because that's, as you know, what determines the size of your stitch. And if you've covered up all of the working shaft, then you don't have a lot of working space on that hook. Just can't get this bottom right, so I'm gonna try to get rid of that little ledge that I've got going on there. I've got some divots from my glove, so I'm gonna just keep trying to roll it out. I'm not pressing too hard because if you do, it kind of moves the clay around on the hook and it begins to look a little lopsided. So tell me in the comments below, have any of you ever made something like this, or are you looking to make something like this, or have you bought some of these? And let me know what you think of my finished product at the end in comparison to others that you may have seen or bought in the past. So this end is really giving me fits, so I'm just gonna keep trying to shape that to where it looks right and you can't see that little I got an air bubble. I think if I pop that, it might help. But you can see where the hook ends there, and I just can't get it as smooth as I want it to be. So I'm just going to keep rolling it out. Got a few more spots that I want to try to smooth out. And if you decide to make one of these, just make sure you keep putting it in your hand and, you know, holding it like you would a hook if you're going to be using this for a project, and just make sure that it feels right. You don't want too much clay, again, as I mentioned, at the neck of the hook. You don't want excess at the bottom of the hook and not enough at the top. So just keep putting it in your hand and playing around with it and make sure it feels right. Just about got it as smooth as I want it to be. So I think now I'm going to add some glitter, and this glitter is a little bit more coarse than what I had wanted to use, but I don't have any more silver glitter, so I'm just going to see how this turns out, and just going to roll it around to make sure I get good coverage on all of the hook. And yeah, that feels a little bit rough, so I'm just going to wipe some of this off here. Maybe after I bake it and I put a clear coat on it, then it will not feel as rough. Just gonna roll it out a little bit and see if I can smash some of that glitter into it. Maybe this will help me figure out what to do with this end that keeps bending on me. Place some where it didn't stick to begin with. Try to smooth this out a little bit more at the top. So again, I don't want much of a ledge. I want that to be a smooth transition into the hook itself. I think I might have too much clay there at the top, but we'll see. We'll see how it turns out and how easy it is to use. Just keep trying to flatten that out a little bit better at the top. Want to keep in mind the thumb rest here and make sure that it's not flattened on an opposite direction of that thumb rest. So I use the knife hold when I'm crocheting, so I need to make sure that thumb rest is adequate. So I'm going to try to put in a swirl indentation just to kind of match with the pattern that I've created. Again, there's no rhyme or reason. I'm just kind of winging it as I go. And maybe if I don't like this, I'll just smooth it back out and try again. But I kind of want to commit to a design just so I can get this finished and see how it bakes up. I don't know if it's going to be soft after it's baked or if it'll be hard, kind of like a wooden handle. I messed that one up. Yeah, this end keeps giving me fits. Just keep pressing those indentations in, get a nice swirl going. This end, it's dead to me. It's coming off. I'm done. All right, so let's smooth this back out. Took most of my glitter off from the end, so I'm gonna add a little bit back there once I get this smoothed out. Yeah, that's much better not having that there. So what do you think? I think it looks pretty good. So what we'll have to do now is bake it. Make sure you look at the directions on the box for the clay that you've used. There's a suede type that I've used, and then there's a more shiny type that I've used, and each of them have different baking times. So I'm gonna kind of try to target somewhere in between, and we'll just see how it turns out. So I will check back as soon as the baking is done. Okay, so the baking is done. It's time for a clear coat. I'm going to use this Minwax polyurethane, and I just want to put a light coat over it, and then I'll let it hang here to dry overnight. Want to make sure it's not sticky and we get a good dry time on this, and I'll show you the finished product as soon as it's dry. Okay, drying time is done and it looks wonderful. I cannot wait to find a project to use my new hook, and I had to put the size in there somewhere so I would know down the road what size hook this actually is. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Be sure and subscribe and click that notification bell so you know when I post future videos. So thanks for watching and have a great day. Happy yarning!